Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. It is good to be in your company as we look forward to another great forum. I am Matt Barnes, morning co-anchor of NBC4 Today and a member of the CMC Board of Trustees. Today's live stream is presented by the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch. We want to thank all of those who are supporting today's forum with a round of applause as well. And now let's get into this forum, which I think is going to be a real fun one. Apparently, they're all veterans of this, so this should be a hoot. The pandemic, of course, took its toll on Columbus, one of Columbus's favorite activity, I think, and no activity was more impacted than dining out in our city's restaurants. You know how hard that was. Because if there's one thing Columbus loves, it is the Cbus food scene for sure. And while takeout and some other innovative ideas kept many of these restaurants busy and let the patrons support their favorite spots during the pandemic, Columbus restaurants are now, you're starting to see they're full, right? They're poised for a major comeback. And with today's speakers, we're going to talk about that rebirth of the Columbus restaurant scene. So please help me welcome Rich Terapak and Steve Stover, co-hosts of All Sides Weekend, Chefs in the City on 89.7 NPR News. We have Jim Budros, a restaurateur and co-founder of City Barbecue, and our host, the incomparable Ann Fisher, executive producer and host of WOSU Public Media's All Sides with Ann Fisher. Looking forward to this conversation. You can learn more about each of our speakers also in today's flyer. But for now, Ann, take it away.
Thanks a lot. It's really great to be here with my buddies. I'm really not a moderator today, though. I am more of a referee, right? When I interrupt, all else, everyone shuts up. Rich and Steve, it's a momentous year. Rich and Steve celebrated 40 years of teaching cooking together with a special class at the Franklin Park Conservatory a few weeks ago on March 8th, and they were featured in the January Columbus Monthly magazine. You should check it out if you want to learn more about them and their roots in the food scene in Columbus. They joined me at 11 a.m. The first Friday of the month for our All Sides Weekend Chefs in the City, and they are hard workers. Steve really is they're both co-hosts because they do all the legwork. I just sit back and, ask them silly questions. Yeah.
We knew we had to keep doing it to keep our job.
So I welcome all three of you to the days today, and I guess we can't talk about what's going on today without talking about what was going on back in the early spring of 2020. Steve, even 2019. I mean, it was all, yay, everything's great. It couldn't have been better. Couldn't have been a worse time.
It couldn't have been better, Ann. In early 2020, the Columbus food scene was celebrating one of its best years ever. The New York Times had 3 articles about Columbus. The first putting Columbus among the 50 places in the world that you need to visit, followed by an article about the Columbus food scene, which talked about Service Bar, Avishar Barua, and had an interview with Cameron Mitchell, Columbus restaurant leader Cameron Mitchell. And then a third article talked about the cool place to be in Columbus is in distilleries, and talked about the distilleries and the food scene in Columbus. There were 3 articles in Food and Wine, an article in Wine Enthusiast. Avishar Barua was on Top Chef, and now Columbus is now one of the hot food scenes in the country, along with Nashville and Austin.
Yeah, I mean, Rich, who knew what was about to happen, though, right? It just overnight.
Exactly. It was, I think it was the 15th of March in 2020 when everything shut down, bars and restaurants. Probably a lot of the credit cards and bank accounts of restaurateurs. Meanwhile, back at home, we were hunkering down and doing a lot of cooking, and we were fine with that. We teach a couple classes, we can make a couple things.
How long could this last, right?
Yeah, it can't last forever, but it did. And we found that eventually, maybe after a month or so of doing that, you wanted to get out and find something, and thank goodness for carryout and doing that. The restaurants that were doing that were slow to pick it up, particularly the fine dining area restaurants, for instance, the refectory, did get into it, but it was foreign to them. And then we had the delivery services and their charges, et cetera. We cooked so much, I forgot to mention, we cooked so much that you'll all remember that it was tougher to find flour than hand sanitizer. So, yep, we did our best. So.
And so, Jim, catch us up. Where are we now, 2 years later? Hard to believe.
Well, 2 years later, here we are, the National Restaurant Association, in its 2020 report, suggests that restaurant industry will never be the same post-pandemic. Won't ever be the same because of so many changes that restaurants had to make during the pandemic. Notably, an emphasis on carry-out and third-party delivery and new virtual systems to sell the things that they otherwise normally would have sold to the customers in seats. They had to figure out how to keep their business alive and distribute them otherwise. Of course, staffing continues to be the biggest challenge for the restaurant industry, but there are so many things that happened to the restaurant industry during the pandemic. Those things that were changes to the industry that are likely to continue post-pandemic. But despite the pandemic, Columbus Underground reported 110 new restaurants and bars opening last year with 30 closing. So 3-to-1 increase, pretty good.
I know, it's the resilience, the spirit.
Exactly.
Some people just stalled their plans, right? They just put things on the back burner, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then they had all that time at home to get anxious about it.
And then they got all
as soon
stressed
as they could. And the PPP program helped a lot as well to keep the places going with a much smaller staff.
Right, exactly. So what, the trends that emerged, we thought were just for the time being, but Steve, some of them are here to stay, right?
Yeah, I think that many of the changes that came, as Jim discussed, are going to be permanent. Shorter hours, perhaps and fewer tables because of staffing, the number one issue. Shorter menus, too, because of supply chain issues and the cost of food. People don't want to buy a whole bunch of food that they're not going to use. As Jim said, continuing emphasis on delivery, takeout, curbside, and more and more and more outdoor dining. Our May 6th show on WOSU is going to be, we're going to be talking about outdoor dining and rooftop bars, which really have been an important part of bringing restaurants back. Also, other new things like ghost kitchens. What's a ghost kitchen? It's like a food truck without a truck. In a warehouse, they set up a kitchen and they do delivery and maybe some takeout. And it's a great way to be an incubator of new restaurants. And also, I know a bunch of restaurants who've tried this ghost kitchen to expand their reach, to take delivery all over the city if you've got a place in Clintonville.
Well, and also to try different things without having it associated.
Oh, that's really important. And it goes as far as Jim told us about Gold Belly, which will ship food from famous restaurants all over the country, such as Legal Seafoods, to your house, maybe with a 50 to 100% fee. Another trend, and Rich can talk about more, but plant-based food, not just the Impossible Burger, but chicken. And 11 Madison Park, one of the most famous restaurants in the world, is now totally plant-based. And as we'll talk about, rooftop bars. We now have more than 36 rooftop bars in Columbus, and more to come, and we'll talk about that on May 6th.
Because they're outside, and you use them.
What did the pandemic have to do with the increase in plant-based food? Just that they were trying something different and it stuck, or what?
I don't know that it's related.
Okay,
Well,
it just happened.
In the case of 11 Madison, it's a political statement about sustainability
Okay,
and climate change and the sustainability of other than plant-based food. Sustainability for fishery, the extraordinary cost of raising beef and pork, the extraordinary cost increase in those of those products,
Right.
and the fact that a chef wants to be inventive. It's easy to put a piece of steak in the frying pan. It's hard to take what's always the most colorful things on the plate, often the most unique, the things that are always first in the grocery store. You know, it's all the produce is always first, and it's that focus that is driving 11 Madison. Interesting, very interesting.
And Commune in Columbus, which does amazing food
Pad
without any
Thai, a commune.
Oh, it's a great week.
And let me just on this point of what's new as a result of the pandemic. This is a little case study with our little company, City Barbecue. We opened up a restaurant, Miller's Lane in Dayton, and it was a restored steak and shake with a drive-in, with a drive-through. We never had a drive-through before. We always wanted people to come into the store, smell the smoke, look at our beautiful smiles, use our clean bathrooms, see the guys and the gals crunching out the pork shoulder and so forth on the board. We wanted people to be in the restaurant to experience it, and so we remodeled this store in Dayton. All of a sudden, this store opened with the biggest numbers ever in the history of our little company, and we'll probably never have another store in the history of our company that we make without a drive-through.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out all the stores that we can retrofit with drive-throughs. We thought just the opposite for so many years, and here it is, something that the pandemic sort of forced upon us that was so dramatic and is to our benefit.
And it's really important because those delivery services charged are just incredible, the percentage of the cost, which is a reduction for the profit of the restaurant.
They're placing limits on them, legislation in some
Right.
cities.
Yeah, it got
limit
that
them.
difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing, Hunan Lion, for example, went from 80% eat-in and 20% carry-out to 20% eat-in and 80% carry-out during the pandemic and slightly thereafter.
And of course, off-premise catering, any restaurant that did off-premise catering, especially event catering, went to zero.
Right.
Yeah.
And our friends Made from Scratch stopped doing business. They were in the event catering business. Larry just simply said, I have no business. There was no business.
No events.
And now that everybody's getting married and all these events that were put
Yeah,
off for 2 years, it's
exactly.
just like a huge stressor on the ones that remain. Yeah. Other like trends, including the era of the chef owned, is firmly entrenched now, I think, by this.
It is, and I think that probably, as you said, that was something that they were considering during the pandemic, and it just fired them up. They knew they can do it, and generally, quite frankly, the restaurants that we favor and the restaurants we enjoy most are those that are chef-owned. A couple of them, Steve had mentioned, I believe a little bit earlier, the Chapman's, excuse me, Eat Market. And they've done a great job, such a good job, and so creative, that after the New York Times published them as one of the restaurants you had to go to, it took 2 months to get a reservation. And
Yes.
finally got in, I think, on
A Tuesday after Christmas
at 5 o'clock.
at 5 o'clock. And they made us wait out in the rain because were having their staff meeting, because that's how seriously they take their food, and I completely respect that. They're talking to their servers and whatnot about what's coming out that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's going so well that they're opening a jazz bar on North High Street, I believe. So look forward to that. Besides all of those kinds of issues, we've got another trend in food halls. And you know, it's kind of like, did you see a food hall before the pandemic? Maybe one. Now we have 6 opening in 2022. There's Bud Dairy, which is probably the most prominent one right now, with 10 different vendors. A lot of fun, a great old building that they were able to save on North 4th Street. The Center Street and Hilliard, Bridge Park is just incredible. As you all know who have been there. We live on the Far East Side, so it takes about 6 zip codes to get there, but it's worth the trip. It's truly incredible. We've got the East Market Trolley District, which will be a little closer to home. It's near the Franklin Park Conservatory on Oak, and they are just beginning to open up. They've got a few spots that are opening, but they'll include the Yellow Brick Pizza, which moved out of its former location, has been taken over by another spot. The world cuisine is truly, and we've done a show on this, is truly the amazing growth in the last, well, before the pandemic, but even during the pandemic. We've got so many more, and it shows our ethnic diversity in Columbus, which we should be proud of. We've got some from Somalia, Ethiopia, Peru, El Salvador, Japan, Tibet, Nepal. It's interesting stuff, and it shows that there's a market for that in Columbus, and which is really terrific, which makes us one of those people, one of those places the New York Times.
And speaking of markets, I mean, there's ethnic markets now. We're washing them. You used to have to search for that specific ingredient, and now it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
I drove down Bethel Road about 2 years ago from Olentangy to Sawmill and counted 42 ethnic restaurants, groceries, and shops. In Upper Wonderful, too.
Why would that be? My sense and theory is that Columbus is a refugee-friendly place.
Right.
Yeah.
Unlike Cleveland, Cincinnati, where we didn't have giant neighborhoods of Italians and Germans and others, although we had some Germans here, the food that would have normally come from those big neighborhoods of ethnic folks simply didn't exist here.
Right.
We're in the banking and soft business and insurance and so forth. And so here we are 25, 30 years later with having been very conducive to refugees. And they have to feed themselves, and and of course one of the things they do so well and so easily is cook grandma food.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want the real deal. And they're bringing it to us. 2021, after things eased up a bit, Steve, after the lockdown ended, what happened?
Well, we fired things up pretty quickly. I think Columbus exploded back on the scene. We're back to 2021. Really, the big news, as Rich already mentioned, was Chapman's Eat Market, which opened earlier but closed. It was that New York Times article. Exploded on the scene, and very creative, edgy dishes, if you haven't been there, some with Asian influences, in the former original Max and Irma's. Rich also talked about the Bud Dairy
Unrecognizable, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you.
But it's very cool. And
Telephones anymore.
as Rich talked about the Bud Dairy Food Hall, 10 different things, 3 bars. It's a big food hall with several bars on the lower level. It's got a rooftop bar, and then 10 different things, something for everyone.
And it has a parking lot.
A small one, but you got to be there at 4 o'clock for the blue hair special because, by 4:30 it's
But you get home in
full.
time for Jeopardy, so it's
But you
okay.
got,
Steve's in the know.
Well, parking is a big deal, and
Yeah.
a restaurant that sort of suffers from parking, although they've semi-solved it, is the new restaurant called Place, P-L-A-S, sort of a take on the French cooking term called mise en place, putting things in place is what you do before you cook. And Place is in the spot at Fifth Avenue, almost to High Street, where the restaurant called Table was, right across from where Avishar was before, the service bar.
Yeah.
Service bar.
Which sort of, I think, is their overflow parking lot. We were there a few weeks ago. It was named #1 in Columbus last year. It's pretty good food. It's, I would say, rustic and great flavors. That's what's notable about, what's the chef name? Jamie?
Jamie,
George? Jamie
George. He used to be
Jamie
at
George,
Cucina.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For a long time.
at Columbus Underground's #1 new restaurant of the year.
Yeah, and then of course in the short north we had a couple of steakhouses come. Gala Park Steak came, the team at Fireproof, and then Urban Chop House came and went, became Chop House.
We barely knew ya.
614, but
No videos.
Actually, the short north is just about as hot as it can be, and we'll talk about some new places, especially one at the very southern edge of the Cap, in just a minute. Yeah.
Rich, you wanted to talk about Ghostwriter Public House. You
Yeah,
talked
there's
about
some
it
that
on the air a little bit.
deserve a drive. There's one in Johnstown called Ghost Rider Public House. It's in the middle of Main Street. It's a very chic little restaurant. The former chef at Lindy's started it, took along a bunch of the staff. It's worth a trip. They serve a lot of local farm items. The beef and pork are all sourced locally. They have Copia Farm eggs and Black Radish Creamery cheeses. And it only takes about 25 minutes from home. It's worth
And
the
you're
drive.
on the east side.
I'm on the east
Yeah.
side. It's only 4 zip codes. The other one that is worth a drive is out in Granville, just on the western edge of Granville, so it isn't too much of a trip. Go out 161 and you can be there in a hurry, is Ray Ray's Meat and 3 in Granville. James Anderson, who is the uber popular food truck guy with Ray Ray's Hog Pit, this is his first brick and mortar store, restaurant, and he's doing a great job. He brought on board a truly terrific chef, Bill Glover, who used to be at the Hilton downtown, and they're doing a lot of meat and 3 dishes. It's kind of a southern thing where you order your protein, it's probably barbecue, or fried chicken, and then you get side dishes. Again, comfort, mac cheese, slaw, collard greens, beans, and pudding.
Gotta have the pudding. Yeah, a neighbor of mine went out there, I think it was on a weekend, and because the students were out on spring break, their personnel was very low, and they weren't serving lunch at the time. Another example of, some of these places are having to choose between lunch and dinner, and obviously dinner with the alcohol involved is
Yeah.
gives you the margins you're looking for, I suppose.
And I think the staffing at Ray Ray's probably relies on students.
Right,
So,
exactly.
don't go
At Denison, yeah.
during spring break or summer. The other thing we ought to celebrate, which is just around the corner, and it's not a drive, is White Castle had its 100th year anniversary.
That's something.
And it's Steve's goal to eat 100 White Castles by the end of the year.
Dubious.
In more ways than one.
The true meaning of COVID-19.
I don't know. Steve, what else?
Couple quickies,
yeah.
North Market Dublin, another which has about 7 or 8 different things. They've got a nice happy hour, bottles at $5 over state minimum. There's another lobster place, coastal and local seafood. Gallows Pizza, Pit Barbecue, Dos Hermanos, the wonderful Mexican restaurant at the North Market, has an outlet there, and Rockbell Tavern, the wonderful Belgian brewery in Lancaster, has a restaurant here on South Front. They changed their format, and they now are doing pizza, which I think is good for the neighborhood, but pizza and pairings, where they'll pair it with their wonderful Belgian beers and a curated wine list. El Segundo, that means the second. It's a Cameron Mitchell's Mexican concept, but it's the second Cameron Mitchell restaurant in that location, replacing
That's
the short-lived Harvey and Ed's, the delicatessen. It's also the space of one of our favorite restaurants of all times, the legendary Rigsby's. So that's another new restaurant, and again in 2020. Well,
Before we move on, because there's more than just restaurants, there's all kinds of things affected by this, but I think that the smaller menus are one of the best things about the changes, because I'm one of those people, my fantasy is to go to one of those cuisine trips in southern Italy or something where they tell you what you're having. That's my fantasy. I can't stand those giant menus, you know. It's like what word's the first word you see? That's the one I go and that's what I pick. I think having that smaller menu, there's so many benefits to that. It's better. It's you know. What do you think?
or you could do what we did the first time we went to Rigsby's. We simply, the four of us, four couples, ordered everything on the menu.
We didn't want to make any choices, so we didn't. But of course, one of the themes pre-pandemic and into the pandemic is the idea of a fixed price menu, something that helps the kitchen manage their food cost, manage the waste, and provides the diner, as you say, Ann, with a straightforward decision of no decision.
Right. Yeah, that's my idea of a good time. Yeah.
And you get what the chef thinks is the best on his mind that day, which is good.
Right. Jim, so Carfany's Italian Market and Restaurante opened?
Yeah, it's not exactly a restaurant, although there's a restaurant in there and a bar. Carfany's moved from its original location to Polaris. It's got a big, giant meat counter, which is what you'd expect from Carfany's. It's almost as though they moved their meat counter from the old store to the new store. It looks practically the same. It's at the end, at the back of the store. In the middle of the store is a big, fresh pasta section, so you can buy fresh pasta there. And then all around are Italian food ingredients, so that it's almost like Disneyland for the food obsessed. And it's a wonderful, wonderful concept. We're really happy that Carfany's sort of remade itself once again, remake themselves,
Right.
as a result of the demands of the pandemic.
And they also have a profitable area called the wine store and a liquor store. It helps out.
Yeah, exactly. The owners of popular Fox in the Snow branched out, and there's a new. They have a new small sandwich shop called Icarus. What does Icarus mean? There must be
the
some.
god who
It's the
flew
god
into
of
the
the god of pastrami. No, I don't know.
The guy that flew too close to the sun.
Yeah, the one that gets too close to the sun and his wings melt off or something?
And speaking of sandwiches, there's a fellow started a company whose small restaurant, actually not a restaurant at all. You have to sit in the hallway of the building just across from the hockey arena, called Wario's Beef and Pork.
Wow.
These are sandwiches. If I say they're this big? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're this big. You need to split it, but it's a great Philly style sandwich, and I thought that you could eat one, but you can't.
No.
I don't know
But you
about
tried.
I did.
Steve.
It was before the James Taylor concert, and I bought two, and Mary couldn't finish hers, so I had to finish mine.
And we have a friend named Jim Douglas who had a wonderful pizza shop out in Bexley called Anthony's, that started a pizza shop called Papa Giorgio's, and he's on Bethel, and he started a new place. I haven't been to the new place. Is the new place open?
Yes.
Is it? And he's expanded from pizza to a broader menu?
You're right. They have pastas and salads.
Yeah,
And
it's good. It's good. He's a good guy.
And then we've got a couple new places. You know, Italian cuisine has always been popular in Columbus, and Polino's Pizza, Vinnie and Christina Polino, transformed the former yellow brick pizza that was located was located, and they are now located at 245 King Avenue. They opened on August 5th last year. They have fresh homemade pasta daily. They include an interesting and very popular new dish that I think just got to our neighborhood a couple years ago, the cacio e pepe, which is tossed tableside in a wheel of pecorino romano that's been carved out. And they do it that way, which is the authentic way of doing it. They were number 4 in the Columbus Underground Top New Restaurants. Sono Wood Fired, named Best Chicago Pizza, and it's not the deep dish. It's an authentic Tuscan-influenced pizza with they also have homemade pastas and the handcrafted pizza, the anapasti, and a wine bar. Back in the neighborhood, we've got the Top. And you can walk in the restaurant and it's 1950 and Connie Stevens is singing someplace in the right. It's a great spot, and it has been since 1954. They added a huge new outdoor dining area. It's a patio, but it also can be somewhat enclosed, so it's usable in this kind of weather or colder weather. It's worth the trip. Always very busy. Make sure you get there early or put a reservation in early. But I heard a great story about that. My friends who had been there somewhat recently. It was right after Joe Burrow got his signing bonus. He invited his Ohio State squad to the Top. And they walked in and they saw, of course, it's a great place for them being in big steaks, huge steaks there. And these big guys were all lined up on one booth and treated by Joe, who is still a Buckeye.
Such a good guy. What a friend. All right, so, and that's the other thing. I mean, we kind of kicked it off with what's new and how many places opened up during the pandemic, which is amazing and wonderful news. But in 2022, Steve, what's
Busy year.
Yeah.
And we'll have to go quickly because we're starting to run out of time.
Yeah.
Understory. It was just opened this week in the old open air project on Neal Avenue at Hudson. It's an old building, but it's fabulous. Mary, my wife, worked there when it was a school for special needs kids. It was built in 2027. And Understory is a really cool, in an old building. There are several different levels. There's an entertaining level on the top floor, and it goes out into a patio overlooking the Olentangy Trail. And we'll be having Wolf Ridge beer, and it'll be a lighter menu than the other Wolf Ridge, but I am anxious to try it. We saw it before it was done. We got to check it out, and then
Does it open officially this week?
yes, last week I think.
And below is Emmett's.
Emmett's Cafe,
Which is a
Breakfast
brunch
and
and
wonderful
lunch place.
little breakfast and brunch place, and
Both at that location and on South High Street.
South High.
And as I mentioned earlier, we've got the East Market Trolley District opening up at Kelton and Oak, and near the conservatory. The two that I know are open, because I've been there, are the Rail House Tavern and Switch Cocktail Bar. But they also have a Butcher and Grocer, which is expanding rapidly, also opening in New Albany, I believe. Creole to Go in French. Ohio City Pasta, Winston's Coffee and Waffles, and on and on. So it's a great anchor for that neighborhood.
And there's a
it's a wonderful-
speakeasy. I heard there's a speakeasy
Downstairs.
underneath there.
Yeah, and it's, they saved the old trolley barn, and it's a really interesting piece of architecture, so check it out. Parley Sporting Club and Kitchen is on North High Street. It's called itself a high-end modern luxury sports bar. And
What does that even mean anymore?
I don't know.
Everything's a sports bar now.
Well, this is because they have 100 televisions, 100
Oh, okay.
televisions. 2 patios, a game room.
Television quota.
And And there's entertainment by DJ, so.
And Jackie O's is a new place coming on North 4th Street. It's a huge, huge place. 8,000 square feet, 400-seat open bar and outdoor patio area. This just shows you, when we've mentioned the whole afternoon about all these new outdoor venues, and it's clearly one of the most important new trends.
Let's see, I think that we're just about out of time. Maybe one more,
Okay.
one more.
Well, we want to mention the Edwards Company that has taken over the corner of Gay and High. We have the #1 restaurant in Columbus, Veritas, and there's a wine store as part of it, but they're opening a new French restaurant called Grand Rue, a French bistro, which we haven't had and we need in Columbus. And they're bringing Speck, their wonderful Italian restaurant from Dublin, down to Columbus. And all this will be centered at Gay and High. And we might want to mention the 2 new Cameron Mitchell restaurants.
I'll mention the 2 new Cameron Mitchell restaurants quickly. Valentina's, the new Italian concept in Bridge Park. It's Cameron roams around the world, finds relationships with friends, and he met a wonderful family in Italy. I think the grandma's name was Valentina's, so that's why the restaurant would be called Valentina's. And then the hot news is at the location on South 3rd Street in German Village. Cameron is opening a new restaurant there, and he's just gotten the approval of the German Village Commission to enlarge its patio significantly. So that will be really wonderful.
It is tradition to take questions and comments from the audience, so maybe start to queue up with those, and we'll kick it off with Jane.
Hey, thank you so much. You know, I'm sorry, I can't resist. You talked about White Castle. You all remember Karen Welzel. She used to love to take a dish called Chateau Blanc pâté to the fanciest wine tastings, and people would rave over it. And at the end of the evening, she would explain to them that it was White Castle's, the whole thing, in a blender baked.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we did that. How many years ago might it have been?
Probably
for
close
childhood,
to 30.
childhood league
30,
party.
30 years ago.
We did
yeah.
that, and
You got to be at least
we
35.
slathered cream cheese over the top of this,
Yep.
meatloaf made just exactly as
Yeah.
described. Called it pâté au Chateau Blanc.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people just loved it.
Yeah.
They ate it up.
That was
And
her,
then we told them, and they couldn't believe it.
that was her biggest joke. She loved doing that at fancy wine parties. Anyway.
You can
so
hold the
we have,
pickles.
we have a number of questions, and I'll get out of the way here, too. Steve Swift wanted you to talk a little bit more about the menu trend away from the bigger menu, and I'll add a piece to that. Are we stuck with the digital menu that we have to do the QR code, which I...
Did you ever figure out how to use that?
Yes, but only out of desperation.
It is a challenge, and at Bud's Dairy, they have the QRs for each restaurant, but you can ignore that and turn and go to the restaurant and order the food right in front of them and
Yeah.
see it prepared. So
Yeah.
you don't have to, but a lot of that was for sanitation purposes.
Yeah, sure.
During the
So,
COVID.
so to Steve's question, are we always going to get away from the bigger menu, or is this just trending in some restaurants but not everywhere?
Oh, I think we've got all, and the other guys may agree or disagree, I think we've got all kinds of options available. The tasting menu we've talked about, many of us go to restaurants and order several appetizers rather than the big hunk of burning love on the plate. And there are as many options as your creativity will permit. But I do think we're not stuck with the big old menu anymore.
And I think one of Jim's rule of thumb, which I think has been great advice for a number of us, is eat off the left side of the menu. The appetizers are where the chef is showing off, and you'll be able to keep to your diet as well. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Tony Bell, Phoenix Consulting Company, and I'm also a proud board member here of the CMC. When I saw when I saw the advertisement for this particular session, I couldn't wait to come. And in my mind, the whole drive here, I was going, food, glorious food. And
That's a good who.
so I hope that gives me, enough time to say that, one, I love City Barbecue. I have the app. I accept all coupons from the co-founders. My favorite location for City Barbecue is the one in Newark because there's something that they do to make the meat, the ribs more tender than any of the other locations. So, make sure they start talking to each other because it is a 45-minute drive for me there. The next thing
That's our only
is,
other location with the real drive-through.
yeah, I don't mind going in because they're so kind and amazing. And I don't mind the drive. I just want all of the, I want them all to just be as tender. Somebody's putting their foot in it up there in Newark, and I appreciate it. And that's a colloquialism in the Black community. That means if you put your foot in it, that means it's amazing, like grandma, it's good. It's some ingredient that you don't care what it is, you just are glad it's there. So the next thing I would say is I was really impressed when you were talking about the different restaurants, and especially ethnic restaurants throughout Columbus. I highly encourage you to go to the Royce, which is at Polaris, Super Chef, which was started by some young people that went to East High School, and What the Waffle. And another self-promotion is I'm a big fan of Pistachio Vera. So coupons. Yeah, I have this dream like
Good
Ann
genes.
Fisher does. Yeah, right? I've got this dream like
You're my
Ann
new
Fisher
best
does,
friend.
that we'll have maybe some big coupon thing where everybody get like a basket full of all the restaurants in Columbus, and we get to raffle it off, and maybe I'll win.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, so my question, oh yeah, I do in fact have a question. So post-pandemic, I am thinking about, so something I appreciated about the pandemic is that people paid more attention to the cleanliness of things, right? So if you go to a restaurant during the pandemic, you sit at the booth, they sanitized it really well so the rice from the kids before you isn't in the booth. What do you think can be done to encourage, right, that attention to detail of, gone are the days where I want to see the dirty rag come out of the bucket and slosh all over the table,
Yeah.
and bada boom, bada bing, it's clean. It's not. So I think that I'm seeing that happen with customer service, right? So you guys are doing a great job promoting all these great restaurants, but I can say as a customer on the other end, sometimes what I'm experiencing outside of your restaurants and Cameron Mitchell's, sometimes it just feels lackluster on the attention to detail. Prices are going up and we really care. So what do you think is going to happen?
Well, you can certainly tell when you notice that or realize it. You can certainly tell management because what you'll do is pass that information about dirty wipe cloths around to your friends, and they'll lose business. So I think one of the ways to discipline is to go ahead and say something about it.
Here, here.
Yeah.
A good restaurateur will want to make things right for you, and it helps the entire system to politely let them know when there's a problem.
And as far as cleanliness goes, I mean, my sense is I don't think that's going to go away. I
don't
think
either.
No.
I think everyone's keeping their hand sanitizers out. I just feel like they stepped it up in the right direction on that score. You've got to make people feel comfortable, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So with the trend, there's another trend you didn't mention with the outdoor or the entertainment districts, I can't remember the initials. Dora.
Yeah, I can
Entertainment districts, outdoor dining has been allowed now, and hopefully they'll decorate them with something other than highway barriers. Do you sense that the bureaucracy in general, and maybe in Columbus, is loosening up a little bit, and it's going to let us have a little fun in this town?
Did we ever think we'd be able to walk out of a restaurant or bar with a mixed drink?
No.
Yeah.
Ever.
You
Well,
roam
I
around the
think,
entire arena district now.
I think Columbus has finally seen the light because they made the outdoor dining permanent. I think there's still room to loosen up the rules a little bit and give restaurants a little more flexibility and encourage the Doras. There's one in Hilliard that's just huge, that takes most of the downtown. And other towns really picked up the Doras before Columbus did. And I think it's to the benefit of doing that in Columbus more.
The Ohio Restaurant Association was key in getting a lot of that done. So, and they stuck with it. And you know, it was a great cause because so many of these restaurants were closing down. Oh. Yes.
You mentioned Jackie O's downtown and the new restaurant going into like the Edwards company there at Gay and High. Is anything else coming to downtown Columbus?
Yes. I'm trying to think here. The Columbus, or downtown in the short north, Jeff Ruby.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, Rick?
Yeah, they had a event space downstairs at Jeff Ruby's, and I don't think it was being well used, and since we all know there weren't many events for a number of months, they decided to turn it into a dining area. And they, you know, put their usual amount of investment into the decor, and it's supposed to be great looking, and it can serve 90 diners.
Yes.
No.
And
Let
decor,
me-
decor, decor.
Let me mention a unique public-private partnership with the City of Columbus. On the 16th floor of the courthouse building, there's the old cafeteria, serving hundreds and hundreds of breakfasts and lunches. Well, the city partnered with a group of restaurateurs, notably Matt, how does Matt pronounce his last name, from old Ambrose and Eve and now Preston's?
Higgins.
Matt Higgins, partnered with a couple of others, and they are building a restaurant called Cafe Overlook. And their intention is to develop training programs for folks who need a second chance. So as they say, it's not so much what's to be served, but who's serving it. So it's a very interesting new concept called Cafe Overlook on the old cafeteria in the 16th floor of the courthouse building.
And Matt also owns Preston's, a burger joint, considered to be, by many to be the best burger in town. It's at the North Market. And I commend it. Ann and I enjoyed that after a show one day, and his partner, he was in the former Ambrose and Eve, which was a new restaurant that made it into the top 10 in its first year, and then they split up, and she's now the chef at Strongwater over in the West Side.
The other spot that gives people a second chance is one that's been around for a few years now, is Hot Chicken Takeover.
Yeah.
It's good product, and all those folks are making their way back into society. So.
When we were at Preston's, she said, "So what do you want on it?" And she goes, "You want everything?" And I said, "No," and I gave her my usual pathetic, you know, things that I like on a hamburger. Her face just dropped. Do you remember that scene? She went, "Oh." I'm like, "Okay, give me everything, you know, what am I doing?" And it was delicious. They have a special sauce. It
Oh,
was super.
yeah, I'll mention that. Freedom a la carte, Freedom a la
yeah.
carte, new
Brick
new
and mortar.
restaurant. I don't remember the address.
It's roughly at Gay and Fourth, I think.
Anyway, it's the organization promoting the prevention of women in trafficking, and it's become it's a wonderful breakfast place and lunch place especially,
Yeah.
and it's terrific. I also want to mention that Goody Boy opens this week. It's it closed in February. It was remodeled, and it opens. I think this week. Burgers and shakes.
So you
Oh,
would-
yeah.
Oh, yeah, Columbus State at the new Culinary Center, the restaurant, fine dining, pretty fine dining restaurant
Yeah.
called Degrees is opened, and
Good.
it's
Thank you.
chef
Go during the
chef
week,
and
because they're
student
only open
run.
during the week.
Excellent.
A real chef, but
real chef.
student operated otherwise. Really a good thing.
So you got my interest, you read my appetite. Are there ethnic food tours in this city?
Well, Bethia Wolf does,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's, will you talk about
Columbus
those a little
Food
bit?
Adventures?
Yeah.
Somebody, Ann, you want to talk about that?
Just that they have different, you know, different themes, and they'll take you around, and they set it all up, and you get your bits and pieces from different venues, and it's delicious. I think they do a great job of curating those trips.
And there's now a beer tour as well.
Yes, right, that's right.
So this is Charlie Warner, and I'm just curious, has anybody tested out the new Chapala's restaurant in Old Worthington at High and South Street?
Not yet.
Yes,
Nope.
Which is?
Nope, not yet.
They have really good margaritas.
One of course, most difficult part about doing this is that we have just a little bit of time, and we have to talk about how many restaurants. I mean, I don't know, how many restaurants are there in Columbus? Several thousand.
Yeah.
Well,
And
162 Chinese restaurants.
But
who's counting?
Of the 23,000 in Ohio that closed at the beginning of the pandemic,
Per
7,000
factotum.
of those were in Columbus and the surrounding counties.
Yeah.
So 1/3 of the restaurants.
I don't want to let out a secret, but I've never heard of no soliciting. Has anybody heard of no soliciting? Yeah. It's a private bourbon bar with a restaurant attached. Pretty cool. I haven't been there, but I'm going.
Sort of like a Ann, have you been?
Yeah, it's kind of like a speakeasy.
Speakeasy. Can we do our admonition? Do we have time to do our
Well,
admonition?
are we on our last question thing? Okay.
I'm going to ask a question. So, Ann, you frequently scoop Metropolitan Club speakers, so I'm going to scoop you. Tell us a little bit more about May 6 and the rooftop bars.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, we have work to do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
we do.
We've been
Do
waiting
you
for the
need help
weather.
with reconnaissance to go check things out? I'm sure everybody in here would love to meet you at a rooftop bar.
Oh, my gosh, wouldn't that be fun?
It would be.
That'd be fun.
We were wondering about the timing. Should we wait until we can get out more? Or should we actually proactively, promote rooftop dining? And we decided to take one for the team. We're promoting it. We're going to get out as much as we can before then. But
Reconnaissance.
reconnaissance. And then, of
Reconnaissance.
course, we always, count on our listeners to call in with their ideas as well. So we have work to do, though. There's no question about it.
Yeah, there are at least 36 and probably close to 40 rooftop bars in Columbus right now.
5 years ago, you couldn't find 2.
0.
Yeah. So, sure, go ahead, close it out. We've got-
Okay, so, during the pandemic, it's been hard to get out. Everyone's had a hard time. I kind of got used to it. I don't like takeout. We're looking to you to fill in any important new places we might have missed. Now as much as ever, it is important to support our wonderful local restaurants, right, Steve? By dining in, taking out, and even buying gift cards for future meals. That's a big help. Important note is to please reserve ahead, as you've mentioned a few times, Rich. And many restaurants are open fewer hours, Wednesday through Sundays, in part because of the personnel shortage. So please get out. Also, because of this embarrassment of riches of world cuisine, get out of your comfort zones, because there is just so much out there, and we're so lucky to have the kind of community and the immigrant community we have. It's made such great strides in the last 10 or 15 years.
Your geographical and your culinary comfort
Right.
zone.
Both. And for that, I guess we just say thank you so much for your attention today. It's been delightful.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know about you all, but I'm, even after eating lunch, I'm still hungry. And I apparently need to get out a lot more to a lot more restaurants. Goodness. I hope you found today's forum exciting, delicious, all those wonderful food words that are coming through your mind as well. I know I learned a lot about, everything that's happening in the restaurant scene. A lot of places I definitely need to go eat at and just check out. And it's just cool to see how much we're still thriving despite the pandemic. This city has always been a hidden food scene, but it's not so hidden anymore, which is, I'm noticing a lot of my friends have ideas about where they want to go in Columbus. I don't even know the place, so I have work to do as well. Yeah, I know. Now you gave me too many, though. That's the issue. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I surely did as well. I hope you'll join us next Wednesday, where we are going to welcome again the Ohio Democratic gubernatorial candidates, Nan Whaley and John Cranley, on stage with my colleague and our moderator, Colleen Marshall. I want to thank all of our online viewers who watched, as well as the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation, and presenting our live stream in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch. Special appreciation to our speakers. We had a good time with them. Rich, Steve, and Jim, thank you so much. Ann for moderating. A big round of applause to them. And a big round of applause for yourselves. Thank you for joining us. We cannot do this without you. The Columbus Metropolitan Club loves the conversation. We want to keep it going. So we hope you'll join us next week or a future forum to come. But for the rest of the day, Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Hope you stay dry. And get out there and start eating.
You're right.
Somebody text me, photo.